Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to talk about more annoying webcomic slash webtoon pet peeves. Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone who commented on the last video. Some of y'all wrote essays, but I tried my best to go through all the comments as much as I can to include in this video. To get started on the video, a lot of people commented on this one, and it is the isekai genre. Now, I personally don't read a lot of isekai genre webtoon comics. It's always boggled my mind how they can keep coming up with different types of tropes for these isekai comics. It's like you got the villainess, you got the princess, you got the wives and stuff like that. And I think there is just a surge of popularity for these types of comics. Most of your problems with the isekai genre was that you guys never knew what the MC did before they died. Especially this one comment, it made a lot of sense, saying, I get that it's a popular genre and it's the easy way of explaining the world to a newcomer, but beyond that, authors almost don't do anything with it. I would like to see more stories that actually have MC try to use their knowledge of their past life to help them into the new one. They might as well just made it a regular story at this point. I'm just tired of seeing the setup be I died in an accident and I don't know where I am. The next pet peeve we are going to talk about is 3D models. Now, a lot of your pet peeves with 3D models is that they tend to overlap with the existing comic style of saying maybe it's like something is like very drawn, very beautifully illustration art style, and then you suddenly slap on a 3D background or item on it and it suddenly feels like you're taken out of the comic. And I would like to defend 3D a little bit. Most people who draw comics, they are not good at drawing everything. Some people are only good at drawing characters or props or environments. This is why we have 3D models to help us guide us into drawing it. However, I do understand that the overlapping needs a lot of work. If you are an artist and you're using 3D models, it would benefit you a lot more to make sure the art style and the 3D art style makes sense, because to me it's like, yeah, I get off-put by it if it's like a 3D horse or it's just something that looks completely different from the illustration itself. But I also do know that some people are just not good at drawing in general and they use 3D models to help them, or they are running a tight deadline. So in this case, I feel like we need to be more mindful and just don't take it too hard if people have 3D models and stuff like that in the background. The next pet peeve that a lot of people dislike is the romance tropes, specifically love triangles. There is this one YouTube comment though that gave me a little chuckle. My biggest pet peeve is when it's a love triangle but two of the characters are on the cover. Like, I wonder who they're going to end up with. And yeah, I find this so funny because it's like sometimes you would see the cover setting up a premise that, oh, these two characters might potentially fall in love, and then it's like you try to bring in a third character to snatch the MC away, but then yeah, I mean, we already know who the MC is gonna end up with, so there really isn't any anticipation at this point. Next, I want to talk about overpowered MCs. Basically, if you have an overpowered MC, there needs to be a setback for them. There could be a failure that happened in your life. For example, when Spider-Man tried to save Gwen, but he couldn't do it, and that scene was so mind-blowing because we all thought, as a superhero he can do anything, but turns out he couldn't save the one person that he would want to save. And I think that's a really good contrast for making overpowered MCs. And another good example is Saitama from One Punch Man. If you guys seen the show, dude is really depressed because he's too powerful. I think that's such a good contrast for the character. It's like when your powers cause you mental burden, you know, it's like such a good way to showcase the character. And I think what we can get from all of this is that these overpowered MCs need to have a balance between their power, maybe from their failures or their personality or like mental exhaustion that they get from their powers. If the character is perfect, you know, they have a good personality, they have a good life, he saves all his friends, there is literally nothing to look forward to. And yeah, unfortunately, that's very boring. Now, I want to talk about villains. A lot of people complaints about villains were that they're usually plain evil, shallow, have no real motives and whatnot. Now, for the plain evil part, I actually don't really care for villains that have tragic backstory, like they were abused as a kid or some shit like that. Sometimes people are just plain evil, and some people are born into it, some people grew up in the environment and they just become more and more evil and stuff like that. But just how they got to be evil, I think that is much more interesting. As for the lack of motivation part, it really comes down to the story you're making. The villain's motivations that are tied to extinction, killing people for the greater good, these are all so oversaturated at this point. And it is not the fault of the creators. It is just that in this day of age, we've seen it all. You know, you can thank Thanos daddy for that. For me, I've always liked villains that always put their interests first, because they're just selfish and you don't need a reason to be selfish. Finally, I do want to explore a little bit more on the morally gray aspect of characters. I think a lot of people get confused between like being morally gray / conflicted. They are actually totally different meanings. Conflicted in itself is when someone wants to reach their goal but is conflicted on reaching their goal because they don't know at the end of it, is it really the right thing to do to reach that end. Whereas a morally gray character is someone who knows their goal and the means for them to reach that goal is very morally gray. I think the best character example here would be someone like L from Death Note. I found this post on Reddit, and I thought this explained L very well. L from Death Note, he's on the good side, but he uses questionable means to reach his end, which can be good, but his action tests the boundaries of what can be considered ethical without completely treading on them. Another character that I would consider morally gray is also Zuko from the Avatar The Last Airbender. I found this comment also on Reddit. It says Zuko borders on the evil side once in a while, but in the time of war where casualties and atrocities are normal, he fought with honor and dignity. He kept his words when making deals with his enemy, kept the safety of his crewmen as a priority, and asked for nothing more from the world than a chance at acceptance from the family that rejected him. I really think this comment on Reddit sums him up well, and I do think Zuko is pretty much the best example for a morally gray character. So not all characters are morally gray, they are just conflicted, most of them. I feel like at the end of the day, I, as a webcomic artist myself, I can relate to a lot of people who work on webcomics, and it is definitely a very tough job to be in, especially if you are a one-man band trying to create everything by yourself. Hopefully, if you're trying to create a comic yourself, don't be too bothered by other people's opinions. You can be aware of their opinions. You don't necessarily have to apply the opinions. But I feel like just by being aware of a few points of what you can avoid, from readers' pet peeves. You can only move forward from now on and just try your best to make better characters and better art decisions. Also, don't forget, even though we have a lot of pet peeves for other creators, we should also remember to compliment the creators who do a really good job on their comics. You know, chances are comic creators need more love. It ain't easy being a comic creator. So yeah, remember to also give them love while you give them critiques. And yeah, that is about it for this video. Again, if you guys have more pet peeves that you would like for me to include in part 3, feel free to leave them down in the comments. And yeah, I also make comics. If you would like, feel free to check them out. And I also have Patreon and Ko-fi. Feel free to support me on there. Until then, I shall see you in the next video.